never ever mix fish and cheese together, and yet there they are at the diner after coming out of the bars 2 in the morning starving, and you know what they eat? Tuna melts. And the reason they do is because they're delicious. So it is okay to mix fish and cheese sometimes, and this is one of those times, so check it out. All right, step 1, we're going to make our tuna salad. I am using beautiful imported oil-packed high-quality tuna. All right, you can see it's not all shredded and watery. It does not look like cat food. It looks like real pieces of fish. All right, so your tuna melt is only going to be as good as the tuna you use. So try to use a really nice tuna. I'll give more info about that on the blog. So I'm going to break that up in a bowl. To that, we're going to add some crunchy stuff. I have some minced green onions and finely diced celery. I'm also going to throw in some whole capers. I really love the brininess that brings to this, although I don't like to chop them up like a lot of people do. I think they get too briny, so I prefer them whole. I'm going to throw in a nice big spoon of hot chilies, and then a couple spoons of mayonnaise, but not a ton. All right, and the next ingredient will be the reason why we don't need a ton of mayo in this, because after I mix that all together, I'm going to crumble in some fresh mozzarella. I know, it sounds crazy, right? And it is crazy, but it totally works. So I'm just taking some fresh mozzarella. I'm not even going to grate it. I'm just going to pinch it off with my fingers into little nuggets like that, maybe the size of a pea. And as this tuna melt cooks through, that cheese is just going to barely melt, and it's going to make for a very exciting and delicious experience. All right, after the mozzarella, I'm going to season this a little bit with some freshly ground black pepper, a nice pinch of salt, and we don't really need cayenne because we have the hot chilies in there. But if you're good, I will put some on the top later. So we're going to mix that all together, and we can just put that in the fridge and reserve it until needed. So that's set, and it's on to the buttery bread bases, which of course is the foundation to any great open-face style tuna melt. All right, so cut it nice and thick. I'm going to throw that on a foil-lined baking sheet because this is going under the broiler. I'm going to generously butter both sides. And I actually felt the need to turn this over to show you, to prove I buttered both sides generously. All right, very critical. And then we're just going to toast both sides under the broiler until golden brown. So pop it under the broiler, 2 or 3 minutes until it looks like that. We're going to flip it over. Of course, we're going to broil the other side to an equally lovely shade of golden brown. And when both sides are toasted, I want you to find the side that's darker and put that side down. That will be the slightly crunchier surface, so we'll put that down. We'll put the lighter side up. And then we're going to go ahead and take 2 forks and place upon the bread our tuna salad. And I really like the 2-fork method because it really does give you total control. I don't mean like of your life or your destiny. I mean in the context of this sandwich. But still, it's something. All right, so make sure you're pressing it down nice and firm. Make sure you're going all the way to the edges. This is very important so the edges don't burn. And then once our tuna salad is placed upon the bread, good and proper, we're going to go ahead and top with some sharp cheese. I have some white Irish cheddar, in case you're keeping score at home. So we have our mild and melty mozzarella inside the salad to provide some subtle richness and creaminess. So on the top, we're going to go with something a little sharper, a little more aggressive for the perfect 1-2 punch of cheesy goodness. And then as promised, since you've been so good, we'll give it a tiny dusting of cayenne. Not only does that taste good and probably prevent diseases, it also is going to give the top a beautiful color when this broils, which is the last step. We're going to pop those under a hot broiler. I'm going to say about 5 or 6 inches under the heat. And we're going to broil those for about 5 or 6 minutes until the cheese is bubbling and the tuna salad is heated through. And if you'll notice, I have a casserole dish underneath my sheet pan to lift it off that middle rack a little bit, so I'm a little closer to the burner. All right, I didn't want to move my rack all the way up because it would have been too close. So you'll see there underneath, I just have a baking dish. So that's a good way to get things a little closer to your broiler without using the highest rack. And 5 or 6 minutes later, I actually didn't time it, but you'll know. These were done and picture perfect. So while I do enjoy the classic tuna melt, which is basically a toasted cheese sandwich with tuna in it, I really like this open-faced version. If you're doing this for a group of like 6 or 8 people, very tough to do the classic method. You need like 4 big pans. So this is a great way to do it for a group. And then it was time to enjoy. I served mine with a couple dill pickles. And I'd actually like to take this opportunity to apologize for the fact there's no potato chips on this plate. That is almost a crime against nature. So when you do yours, make sure you have some chips around. But nevertheless, let me eat this anyway. And that was tremendously good. That buttery, crunchy bottom, that mozzarella-studded tuna salad with a little bit of crunch from the celery onion, a little brininess from the caper, those chilies warming things up. And of course, everything covered in that beautiful, melty, cheesy crust. Just an incredible sandwich experience. And again, as I said earlier, this proves once and for all that sometimes, especially when you've had a couple beers, mixing tuna and cheese is not only okay, it is recommended.